Let's talk about the ego. I've been reading this book, Mindfulness in Plain English, and I want to share a piece with you guys that once again resonated with me. Do know I'm not going to read every single thing to you guys. Instead, I'm going to read the key sentences that together form the idea. So he says, happiness and peace, that is what all of us are seeking. For example, we want food, wealth, sex, and entertainment. But examine each of these goals and you will find that they are actually very superficial. You want food? Why? Well, because I'm hungry. Okay, so you're hungry, so what? Well, if I eat, I won't be hungry and then I will feel good. Feel good. Now there's the real item. What we really seek is not the surface goals. What we're really after is the feeling of relief that comes after. We want that relief, relaxation, and an end to the tension. In other words, peace and happiness. This actually made me think a lot about the things that I have done in life. And I was examining each of the goals that I've ever had. For example, the goal of moving in my own apartment, the goal of graduating university, the goal of getting into a dancing show team, the goal of attaining certain yoga poses, or the goal of achieving a certain salary, the goal of having a certain lifestyle, the goal of working from home and not having to commute to the office. And indeed, all of these goals, I didn't do them for the thing itself, but I did it because I thought that that would bring the peace that I was looking for. I thought that finally working from home was going to give me that tranquility, that constant tranquility. But instead, what happened is I put myself the goal of now I don't work from home. The goal is to work from home. But it turns out that once I achieved that goal, I felt good. But that was temporary. Temporarily, I felt satisfied. I felt great. I did it. I made it. But now I realize that that was my ego all along, because after 2 weeks, once the new routine settled in, I realized that, wait, this isn't it. And the same thing with a yoga pose. At the beginning, I really caught myself wanting to do the poses not for the process itself, but because of the end result, because the pose looked like a cool thing to do. And so not only did I not enjoy the process, but I also set myself that final goal, that final destination. And once I achieved it, yes, there was a certain degree of joy. It's like a hit of dopamine. But then after I achieved that, I'm like, okay, what's next? It reminds me a lot those fish in Finding Nemo. Like the whole movie talks about those fish. They're in the aquarium and they're thinking of so many ways to cross the streets to finally get to the ocean. And by the end of the movie, they get to do that. They finally cross the street, they cross the shortest red light of their lives, and then they poof, land in the ocean. And then they're all celebrating for a couple seconds, and then after that they look at each other and they're like, now what? And it's very accurate, and that has happened to me with every single goal, and therefore my life has felt like a roller coaster. I set myself goals so that I can have like a short-term dopamine, because as long as I'm experiencing that dopamine at that moment, I'm not experiencing all the garbage, all the suffering that I've actually been carrying. But then this dopamine is temporary and then it goes down again. And so I have the necessity to set another goal, any other goal, just so that I can achieve something, so that there's something to achieve, just so that I can feel temporarily high. Because in that moment that I feel high with some sort of dirty satisfaction, it's temporary and then it goes down again. And that has been my life, setting a goal, achieving it, feeling good, covering the suffering, and then dopamine goes down. Setting another goal, achieving it, I feel good temporarily, and then the dopamine goes down. And it's been like this on and on and on and on. And so I realized that that hasn't served me at all. Probably in the short term, yes, but I'm still in that roller coaster of emotions and I'm really tired of living that way. And so I'm starting to verify that it's not that having external goals is good or bad per se. My mistake has been in thinking that achieving those external goals will give me the peace that I'm looking for. And I'm not talking about the temporary peace that you get when you retreat yourself and you go walking in nature and you disconnect yourself from the people at the office and from your day-to-day routine. No, I'm not talking about that, because what has happened to me, I've gone on vacation, I went into the nature, and then boom, as soon as I went back to my workplace, I started to feel drained again. I started to not being able to manage the people. I started to blame people. I started to be reactive. And so I've also learned that those retreats are just a temporary way to manage my energy, to kind of bring my energy back up so that I can go and continue with the school of life. But it hasn't been the true solution, like the root solution. And I've heard some people talk about what a better solution might be, which is instead of setting goals and thinking that that peace is going to come from achieving those external goals, how about accepting life as it is? So accept reality as it is. The way that they have explained it is that my peace and my happiness would not depend on whether that goal is achieved. So for example, let's say that I have the goal of achieving a certain yoga pose or to live in another country. If I achieve that, fine. If I don't achieve that, fine as well. And I know this sounds very unsexy because we think that we're then going to become cold-hearted people. Like, really, how can you live like that? How can you live without that ecstasy feeling that comes with achieving things? But my question to myself is, how can I live in this state of suffering? Like, sure, the moments of ecstasy feel good, but the suffering feels really bad the moment that it comes down. And that feeling of ecstasy, it also doesn't feel, it feels like a dirty type of high. It feels like to me, I'm not saying that it's like that for other people. It's just that's how it feels to me. And so I'm very curious by this approach of when people say accept reality as it is, stop trying to change other people to whatever you think they should be, only so that you can feel better temporarily. And by you, I mean myself. But instead, accept people's way of expressing themselves, accept their culture, accept their way of thinking, accept their system of beliefs, and don't try to change them. And I'm in the process of doing that. I have seen some improvements in my reduction of suffering. I'm far from reaching that level of mastery, but it is something that itched my brain a little bit. That now I'm in that transition of, fuck, I've been all my life in this roller coaster of emotions, covering up the suffering through the achievement of goals. And now I'm making the switch to let me not see the goals as the way to cover the suffering. Instead, let me try to accept things as they are, to not suffer at all. Like, there's no covering needed because there's full acceptance. And I know that it's so easy to say this in theory. Like, I've read this a bunch of times, and the practical side of things is completely different. I still catch myself being reactive. I still catch myself trying to change my partner, trying to change his behavior every once in a while, just so it matches to my ideal of a partner, so I can feel better temporarily. But then I also realized that because he adapted to me, I never learned the skill of acceptance. And so the next week there's going to be another set of behaviors that once again I will deem as unacceptable. And because I didn't do the task of learning how to accept, what am I going to do again? I'm going to go create a conflict with my partner, asking him to change, only so I can feel better temporarily. But that's the short-term thinking. I realize I've been solving things temporarily, and I'm tired. I'm done of that temporary state of well-being. Apparently, there's something deeper to a temporary state of well-being, which they call the eternal state of well-being. They call it the eternal peace. They call it the eternal happiness, which apparently is linked to full acceptance of reality. And I'm in the process of making that switch, and it's not going to happen overnight. Apparently it takes multiple years, and it's just a funny thing that I realize about myself, about how I used to use goals to cover the suffering because I thought that achieving those goals would give me that sense of peace, exactly how this book says. So that really stuck with me, and that I'm ready for a change. And the reason that I'm sharing this is because maybe it'll resonate with someone as well. I don't know. And one important last thing that I want to give away is to not believe anything I say. So if I say something that creates some sort of conflict in your mind, that you're like, nah, that's bullshit, Please don't believe anything I say. Don't take my word as the truth. Instead, take the information and verify it through your own experience and see for yourself whether it's true or not. Because I don't have the truth. I don't hold the truth. This is just my experience. These are my observations. These are my realizations. And I hope that by sharing them, it'll give some clarity to someone else.